Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is 9 a.m. and the live stream and recording has commenced. You may begin your meeting.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I see that we do indeed have quorum today. I call this special council meeting into session on February the 9th at 9 a.m. And first up is the land recognition statement, and today Councillor Kerr will have the honor.
The town of Pelham is situated on treaty land, steeped in the rich history of the First Nations, such as the Haudenosaunee, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people from across Turtle Island live and work in Niagara. The town of Pelham stands in solidarity with all Indigenous peoples, past and present, acknowledging that our high standard of living is a result of the resources and lasting friendship of Indigenous peoples.
Thank you, Councillor Kerr. I turn to the clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to the approval of the agenda, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Hildebrandt, seconded by Councillor Wink. Be it resolved that the agenda for the February 9th, 2026 special meeting of council be adopted as circulated. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Any questions, comments on the agenda? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. That brings you to item 4, disclosure of pecuniary interests.
Oh, and after viewing the agenda, does any council member have a pecuniary interest to declare? Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to item 5, and that is our presentation this morning by the Deputy Treasurer, Mr. Raj, and I welcome Mr. Siraj to the podium.
Simon, you have the floor.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so we're here to present the Mayor's water and wastewater budget this morning. So the plan for this morning is as follows. We'll start by talking a bit of an overview of the water and wastewater budget here at the town. Then we'll talk about some historical averages for consumption and billing, as they're important inputs that go into our budget, followed by regions' rate increases, again, also very important inputs. Then we'll look at the proposed rate increase for the town for 2026. We'll talk about the reserve fund a little bit, and we'll follow that up with the household impact to the average resident of the proposed rates. And then lastly, the comparison to neighboring municipalities. So the water and wastewater rates are charged on a combination of fixed and variable charges. So similar to how many municipalities charge water, wastewater, portion of the bill is fixed based on meter size, and the rest of it is consumption based depending on how much water you use. The long-range financial plan, which you may hear me refer to throughout the presentation, is something that is a legislative requirement to be completed every 5 years for the water wastewater budgets only. So the town completed this back in 2023, and it was BMA that did that. And this plan really, what it does is it sets the guidelines for the rate setting strategy. So it looks at what the costs are, because water and wastewater budgets are supposed to be a self-sustaining utility. So the plan is, essentially looking at what's required in terms of capital and operating needs, and gives some guidelines on how we need to proceed for the next 5 years. So really, we use that as a guiding force when we're setting our rates for our budgets. Our residents are billed a larger portion of their bill on a variable basis. So what it does is it allows the residents a little bit of control to be able to lower their water bill if they have less consumption. And just a reminder that 32% of the water and 47% of the wastewater bill continues to be on a fixed basis, which is based on your meter size. So when we're setting our rates, there are a number of things that have a great impact on how we come to that strategy. Number one being the region's approved rate increases. So as a lower tier municipality, we purchase our water and wastewater treatment from the region. So whatever rates they pass on ultimately get passed on to our residents as well. So that's the biggest impact, I would say, probably for our rates. Continued water conservation. So this is why we look at the historical purchase and billing trends, just to see if there's any, trend towards people using less water. Because like I said, this is a utility. A lot of our costs are largely fixed. So the smaller the base that you apply to, the higher or the more pressure you'll have on your rates. Capital requirements and reserve balances, again, ties into the whole fixed cost piece. Our infrastructure is largely fixed costs that we have to replace regardless of the number of users. Well, not entirely, but for the most part. So, depending on what state our infrastructure is in, how well the reserves are doing, all those things have an impact. The next item I have is the operating cost. So this is your, day-to-day cost to maintain your water distribution and billing system, your staff, your supplies, materials, contracts. These costs have largely been fairly, give or take, more in line with inflation over the last number of years. The biggest challenges are really coming from number 1 and number 3, the approved rates from the region and the capital requirements. And lastly, it's weather. So because of the nature of the budget, weather does have an impact. If you have a rainy season, you may see more inflow and infiltration, which will lead to higher costs for treatment of water. You may see less water consumption, which will have an impact on the budget. So this table right here shows the historical averages for the town for the purchases. So when I say purchase, it's the purchase of water and wastewater treatment from the region. So at the very top, you will see the rate that we pay the region. Towards the middle, you'll see the actual amount we paid for the purchase of water, and then followed by wastewater. And down below, you would see the actual cubic meters of water and treatment purchased. So nothing really stands out here. There's some fluctuations from year to year, nothing out of the ordinary. With the main trend being at the top, you can see how steadily the rates have been increasing for the amount we pay for the purchase. It's the exact same thing, but this is now for the billing. So this is the water and wastewater that the town bills its residents. Again, you've got the rates at the top. Towards the middle, you can see the actual amount of revenue that's generated from the billings. And at the bottom is the cubic meter of consumption that's billed. So if you notice, all the numbers are a little bit below, well, not the dollar figures, but the cubic meters would be below what you saw on the previous slide. And that's completely acceptable because you're never going to bill out 100% of the water that you purchase from the region and such. So it's important to look at this because when we develop the 2026 budget, we look at, okay, how have we been trending for billing? That determines how much we anticipate billing in the new year, how much do we need to purchase and all that. So that's why we do this analysis. So this graph shows the two lines here are showing, the blue line shows the water purchase from the region, so same information from the previous slide, and the orange line shows you the water that's billed. And the difference between the two is the non-revenue water, so the water that we purchased from the region but ultimately didn't bill out. Now, council heard from our consultants a few weeks ago regarding the water audit, the results of the water audit, and we are very happy to see that the town's trending on the right direction. We're a lot better than some of our neighboring municipalities when it comes to how strong our network is. So there isn't a big problem with water being lost throughout the network. And you can kind of see that in the last 5 years in terms of this analysis that we look at. You've got some ups and downs, but for the most part, nothing is sticking out too much. And in my experience, anything below 20% is considered decent. And the same thing for wastewater. You can see the blue line is the treatment purchase and the orange line is the treatment that we've billed. Again, nothing out of the ordinary here. You've got some spikes up and down. In 2025, we're a little bit below what we were in 2024, so it's good. Now this brings me to the rate increases from the region. So the boxes in red, you can see that is the actual rate increase for the purchase and treatment of water. 12.33% for water and 13.08% for wastewater. Now these numbers on their own are large enough, but they have an even bigger impact when you consider how proportionate they are to our overall budget. And that's what the pie charts represent. So for water, it's about 36% of our overall budget, that one line item for the purchase of water. And for wastewater, it's about 69%. So as you can appreciate, these, the rate increases, and I'm not, harping on the region, I'm sure the rate increases are required, and, we have challenges, or, you can make the argument, but this is a reality. Whatever the rate increases are, we have to work with those because, we're a lower tier municipality and we purchase from the region. The region bills the town for water on a fixed and variable basis, and wastewater on a fixed basis, and a 3-year rolling average. So those are just, in case you're wondering how we get billed. And like I've mentioned, these rate increases put significant pressures on the town's own budgets. So here's the same information, just in terms of like how it translates to our budget as a line item. So for 2025, we purchased we budgeted 1.5 million for the purchase of water. In 2026, we're budgeting 1,685,000, which is a 12.33% increase year over year. Now, to be fair, we are purchasing a little bit more water based on our trending of how much water we think we need. So that's what that note represents. That the true variable rate increase is actually 8.3%, because the last year's budget was based on 1.49 million cubic meters of water, and this year's budget is based on 1.56 million cubic meters of water. And for wastewater, it's a straight, like I said, they determine what the amount we will pay, and then, they give us that rate, and we pay that, and then we have a 3-year rolling average where it true up to, what they anticipated and what the actual consumption was. So you can see 2025 amount was 2.5 million, and for 2026 it's going to be 2.8 million, which is a 13% year over year increase. So that brings us to the proposed rate increase for the town. So the BMA study recommended a water rate increase of 5%, and the mayor's budget is proposing a rate increase that is a little bit below that at 4%. And at the table below, you can see the overall high-level summary of what makes up that budget. So to run the water department, it will cost 4.67 million. You subtract out the fixed revenue and then other revenues such as water meter sales and water haulers and any other miscellaneous revenue. That leaves you with about 2.9 million still needing to be recovered from consumption. And this yellow number, the yellow highlighted amount, is the anticipated volume. So this is where those historical averages kind of come into play. So just divide the two and you get your rate of $2.22.7 per cubic meter of water, which is exactly 4% below 2025. And, Councillor, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Yes, sorry, just for my own clarification. So the 4%, is that include the fixed rate as well as the budgeted volume, like the variable rate, I guess it is called?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the way we do it is we look at it in two portions. So what I've shown on this slide is just the variable rate, but
Okay.
the fixed rate also goes up by 4%.
Okay, thank you.
Fixed rate was $10 per month. Now you're going to pay $10, whatever 4% of $10 is.
Thank you.
And this table here shows the detailed budget that you have in your budget package. I know it's a little bit small to see here, but if you have any questions, we can flip back to this, but I just wanted to have that as part of the presentation. And similarly for wastewater, the BMA study was recommending a 9.5% increase, and the mayor's budget is proposing slightly below that at 9%. And you can see the amounts as well. It's just under 4.1 million to run the wastewater division. We're anticipating 1.15 million cubic meters of consumption, and that gives us a rate of $1.84.3 per cubic meter of treatment. Councillor?
Just a question, actually, through to the mayor, if he has any knowledge of why the region's costs have gone up so significantly in the last couple of years.
A great question. One that the counselors keep asking our staff at the region, and the staff keep coming back and telling us that I believe it's something like 45% of our infrastructure is in rated poor or lower. So we haven't been keeping up in the last probably 5 to 10 years. We haven't been keeping, we've been trying to keep the tax increase low, and whenever we do that, when we go line by line and we see infrastructure, well, instead of putting 20 million, which is probably a very low, I'm just saying 20 million, well, let's only put half of that. So we have been falling behind on our infrastructure. I would like to think that the last 2 years, we've at least maintained some kind of, at least, we're not getting behind any further, but we're so far behind. And the reports that we have had are that these hikes, double-digit hikes, are going to be a thing, at least, I believe it was forecasted in another 7 years. So it all comes down to infrastructure being not kept up the way it should have been, and now we're paying the price.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So similarly, this is the detailed budget breakdown that we can refer back to if there are any specific questions. So let's talk a little bit about the reserve fund analysis and the contributions. So the reserve fund contributions that you see in the 2026 proposed mayor's budget are based on what the recommended contributions should be as per the BMA study. Sorry, not as per the BMA study. So they're slightly different than what the BMA study had recommended for 26. And the decreasing these contributions was necessary because of the significant pressure that we've got from the rate increases from the region. If we had not decreased these contributions, then you were looking at a rate increase of about 18.4% for wastewater and 7.4% for water. So obviously we had to adjust wherever we could, which was in the reserve fund contribution. So precisely what the mayor just talked about that the region was doing, but our situation is a little bit better in terms of, why we are comfortable doing that. The number one reason is the town's been very fortunate in getting some grants in the last number of years. So just last year, we got a $600,000 wastewater grant from the region. And this year, we were very fortunate to get a $16.9 million grant for the Housing Enabling Water and Wastewater, or just the Water Systems Fund. So when we do these VMA studies, they're done at a point in time. So when we did it back in 2023, they looked at, this is a capital plan, they looked at known grants, okay, this is what you need, this is, how much you will need to set aside every year for the reserve fund. So that's why although it's important to follow the recommendations, because without that it's just chaos, and you fall into these habits of like, okay, let's just not set aside anything. So it's important to follow the guidelines. However, they get updated every 5 years. So when the next time when we do the study, all the positives and the negatives will get adjusted, and then the new, contributions that they recommend will, reflect all of that. So because of the grants, because of the things that we've shifted in the capital, we were comfortable that, even if we're setting aside less, we're not, mortgaging the future too much, so to speak. And the table here kind of puts those words into like some numbers if you want to follow that. So I've got the BMA study recommended contributions at the top and the actual that we've set aside over the last 4 years at the bottom. So if I can just direct your attention to the total column right here, you can see that for total between 24, so the study was completed in 23, so I looked at 24 to 26. We should have put aside $4,415,000 for water reserves, and we've done $4,338,000. So it's about 76,000 short, or 98% of what the goal was. So again, it's pretty good. On the wastewater side, we should have set aside $2.1 million, and we've set aside $1.9. So it's about 200,000 short, or 10%. Again, not something to be overly concerned about, just because of the fact that we've got grants and the capital plan has shifted. So that's why we were comfortable. So we always look at this to see we're not just passing on lower rates now, and then we're going to have a big problem down the line. And these are the reserve fund projections. So for the water reserve, you can see with all the commitments in over the next 10 years, you can see your reserve fund balance is positive for the most part, and it continues to grow. Again, this is at a point in time. As our capital plan shifts, these projections will change in the upcoming years, but as of right now, everything looks good for the water reserve. And then similarly for the wastewater reserve, you've got some small deficits projected for the next couple of years, but then it goes back into the positive balance, and then stays that way for the rest of the forecast. So that brings us to the household impact calculations or figures. So these numbers are based on the average consumption, which is 33 cubic meters every 2 months, roughly 200 cubic meters annually. So down at the bottom, the increase over 2025 rates per billing is about $13.86. If you divide that over, because we bill every 2 months, so if you want to talk about on a monthly basis, that's $6.93. The combined percentage increase for both water and wastewater is about 6.48, and the annual amount that the average household will pay more this year would be $83.13. So again, it just wanted to kind of highlight that when we talk about percentages, 9.5% and 5% seems like a lot, but when you look at the actual impact for the average user, it's not all that much. And this is my favorite slide, which is our comparison to the neighboring municipalities. So this information comes from the 2025 BMA's annual municipal comparative study, where they look at different municipalities and study a bunch of different things. So as you can see, the blue bars are the rates for 2025 for the average consumption of 200 cubic meters, fixed and variable for all the municipalities. And the town is the second lowest next to Grimsby. Grimsby has been excluded from the analysis in the past just because they weren't an apples to apples comparison. Now they're trying to align themselves more to how the rest of the municipalities bill. You got a fixed water and the consumption for water and consumption wastewater. So even for 2025, they've only got, I believe, one of the fixed charges. So in my opinion, it's not an accurate comparison. And when I look at 2026, they've actually got now a fixed rate for water, fixed for wastewater, and then the consumption for each. So similar to how we have it. So my guess would be, would be probably the lowest again when we look at this next year, if not, probably the second at least. And then lastly, the green bar is the proposed rate for 2026. So if I chart that on 2025, it still falls below most municipalities and still falls below the average, which is about $1,523. And I believe that concludes the presentation, so I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. Thank you for a very detailed presentation. I'll turn to council. Any questions to our Deputy Treasurer, Councillor Kerr?
A learning process for me. When I look at, I guess it's your slide 8 and probably slide 8 and slide 7, where you've got non-revenue percentages across the bottom. What is that? Is that town use of water, or? I just wonder what makes that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So I can start, and perhaps we have folks from Public Works, and maybe they can jump in. It's a combination of different things. So it's definitely town use water, for firefighting needs, for flushing of water mains. If you have a water main break, that's, stuff like that. It's a combination of different things. So I don't know if anybody wants to add.
Councillor?
Yeah, I was just, I guess now that includes also usage. So when we add the new splash pads and other things, is that all part of the non-revenue? No? Okay.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Osama.
I was just going to say that the splash pad is actually revenued water. So any water that's used for the splash pad or anything that for towns own, facilities, that is actually billed to the water budget, and it's just the town pays for it as opposed to a resident paying for it.
Okay, no, I was just trying to figure out, as we add more amenities where there's a high water usage, whether that the town kind of just absorbs that and whether that, thank you.
Yep, to the
Through you,
treasurer.
Mr. Mayor, the water audit that was done addressed what the water loss was. So when we had that presentation a few weeks ago, that's what they were looking at to see, what, and the conclusion there was that one, the town is below the average, and most of it did pertain to the fire hydrants and other uses that the town has.
Councillor?
Yeah, that's fine. I was just looking at the 5-year trend of 15%, 25%, 30%, 26%, 21%. The fluctuation in that, I was just trying to, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councillor. Any other questions? I see Deputy Mayor Eckert.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following up on Councillor Kerr's question, and this may be directed to Mr. Cook. The Finance and Audit Committee, we were concerned about this non-billed or lost revenue area. And one of the areas that we discussed was the flushing of fire hydrants, et cetera. Can you, and it was never measured, have you taken steps to measure that amount of water that's used for those purposes?
To Superintendent Cook.
Thank you. Through the mayor, we're not flushing a lot of fire hydrants at the moment, but we have gone out and purchased some meters that we can now measure the amount of water that we're using for operation programs like flushing hydrants and dead end blow-offs and things like that. So we're trying to measure a lot more of the water that we use for operating the system in. I believe we're going to be authoring a report soon to kind of go over different ways that we can address the loss as well. So that's an upcoming report that Public Works is putting together.
Deputy Mayor?
Okay, thank you. And I guess once we quantify that, Ryan, then leakages and things like that would become more easily detected. Is that an accurate statement?
To Mr. Cook?
Through the mayor, I think it's not more easily detected as much as that we know what the actual loss is. And then we can use that data to start looking for where those losses could be. There's different ways of losing water in the system. Some of it is just completely unavoidable. Others is there's a number of different ways you can lose that through leaks or data management or some other operational use or just not recording the amount that my friend to the right here uses for practice. But there's different ways that we can track some of that down.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions to the presenter? Not seeing any. If I may go back to Councillor Nesnick's one figure that does also come to mind is that in order to bring all the region's infrastructure up to, I believe it's to the fair category, we're 700 million short of that. So that's all, and nice to see that when we're 4 million, I believe that the figure is, we're doing our job at this level. It's just unfortunate what has happened at the region. $700 million to bring that up to our fair grade. That's a lot of bucks. I guess the fact that we have now, and correct me if I'm wrong, we've completed our asset management, and so that helps the fact that we don't have any surprises. We know what our pipes are like in the ground. I guess this is to the Public Works Director. With having that asset management done and knowing how the quality of the pipes in the ground, we shouldn't always. There's always going to be breaks, obviously unexpected, but with asset management done, we can pretty more accurately foresee into the future, replacement and other projects like that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So, yeah, we've done a great job in building that asset management plan. So with our water system, we know the age, condition, the type of material that the water mains are made out of. And with that asset, using that asset management plan and the data that we have there, we've started to develop a fairly comprehensive rehabilitation strategy to try to reduce all the remaining cast iron pipe in the town. So if you look at the forecast over the next 10 years, we're making considerable investments in the water system to basically replace those old aging pipes. So all that data is very handy in making good decisions with respect to the system. So we're moving ahead with that.
Excellent, thank you. And last but not least, council and staff, this council has done what we've had to do in the last 2 terms. We followed the advice of the consultants. We had some, they weren't they weren't big increases, but we listened to what the consultants told us we had to do, and it's nice to see that we've done that, and our water rates are still some of the best in the region. So we took the action we had to do as a council, and then again, through the guidance of staff, and together we're doing, I think, an excellent job on managing the increases. So again, great to staff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to give council an update. The Finance and Audit Committee met last week, and one of the recommendations that they're going to bring forward is that staff are going to bring back a report on the recommendations that were made from the water audit and how the town staff are going to implement those recommendations. So that will help us to further analyze the non-revenue, non-billable water, and see if we can improve that. So that will be a report coming to council, and that was a recommendation from the Finance and Audit Committee.
Excellent. Thank you for that information. Any other questions to our presenter? Not seeing any. Again, thank you very much for your details. It was an interesting report. I turn to the clerk.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, that brings you to the council input section of the meeting.
Okay. Turn to any further comments from council. Not seeing any, Madam Clerk.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings us to the close of the discussion, and I have a motion put forth by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Deputy Mayor Eckert. Be it resolved that Council receive the presentation from the Deputy Chair, Mr. Siraj, for information, and that Council adopt the budget as presented today. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. One last call for any final comments. I'm not seeing any. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a motion moved by Councillor Kerr, seconded by Councillor Hildebrandt. Be resolved that Council confirm that no amendments to the budget are proposed this morning, and that the council amendment period, as established through the timeline, has concluded. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carries.
Thank
Madam
you.
Clerk.
That brings us to the confirming bylaw, and I have a motion moved by Councillor Niznik, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be resolved that the following be ready first, second, third time, and passed, being bylaw number 09/2026, to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of Council of the Town of Pelham at its special meeting held on the 9th day of February 2026. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor? I see none opposed. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That brings you to adjournment, and I have a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Eckert, seconded by Councillor Kerr. Be resolved that this special meeting of council be adjourned until the next regular meeting scheduled for February 18th, 2026 at 9 a.m. To you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor? See none opposed. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.